Well, this is the Sportsline Podcast on CHCH for Tuesday, April the 9th. I'm Bubba O'Neil. As you know, our focus, high-level athletes, coaches, executives, officials, and broadcasters that reside or were raised in Southern Ontario. Today, a football player that turned to the basketball court and proved that without risk, there will be no reward. Including the birthplace of this individual, there are 7 lines of accomplishments on this board, and if we were to include every single achievement, contribution, good deed, and award of this individual, the graphics computer would go into overload. It would blow up, folks. Now, with that said, Burlington native Ron Foxcroft has always found a way to balance life as a businessman with Fluke Transport and the Fox 40 Whistle. In addition to his passion for basketball, it led him to becoming the NCAA's first and only Canadian basketball referee, yet he has gladly understood, accepted, and moved his role as a community ambassador. Folks, no one waves the flag of Hamilton proud any higher. Mr. Ron Foxcroft, thank you so much for joining us on the Sportsline Podcast, and I'm honored that you're here.
I'm more honored that I'm here, that I'm with you, Bubba, who I have known my entire life.
Come on! I'm not that old.
No, ever since you were in high school, and you had my son Steve. You worked with Steve on a television show on Sportsline. You won all kinds of awards. But today, we got to get better ratings than we had when you had Steve on.
That's right. He was actually one of the first guests. In fact, he had to be. Based on our history and some of the things we did, when I put together that first week of who do I want to be my guest, and I believe he might have been number 2, and he's deservedly so after the years of what we did on cable TV and the fun we had, and really confirmed my love for television and sports television. So you raised a pretty good one there.
Oh, yeah,
really
that's
did.
right. Now, you know, Bubba, you said about me being a community ambassador. I'm really pounding my chest today. I just got back from the Final Four in Phoenix, March Madness. Yeah. And I've never been so proud to be a Hamiltonian as I am now, and I'll tell you why. They have a festival at March Madness, just like the Grey Cup Festival.
Sure.
Now, the Hamilton Grey Cup Festival does not take a back seat. I am so proud of the city of Hamilton, the Hamilton Tiger Cats, for the Grey Cup Festival they put on in 2023. It does not take a back seat to what they put on in Phoenix at March Madness. And remember, in the NCAA, they have a $1 billion TV contract. They have 74,000 people at a basketball game. They have money coming out of their truck. And yet we in Hamilton, the city and the Tiger Cats, put on the most amazing festival that was equal to or maybe better than the NCAA March Madness Festival that was just in Phoenix. So I'm very proud that you referred to me as the community ambassador. As far as all those achievements, I can't take credit for any of it.
No, you should.
No, I can't. And I'll tell you why. The secret to business, to life, surround yourself with people smarter than you. And you know, my greatest achievement right now, my greatest thrill, watching my 3 boys achieve. I'm so proud of them. Steve, Dave, and Ronnie, my 2 grandkids. And, of course, when I was refereeing 4 to 5 nights a week in the United States, and we had Fluke Transport, I carried dimes, American dimes in my pocket to call Marie, who was running Fluke Transport for at least the 10 years when I was on the road. It seemed like every single day, and you had to call the office, call the home. Is everything okay? Are Steve and Dave behaving? And
no.
Is Steve being influenced negatively by his buddy Bubba?
You know, we balance each other off. I think that was part of the secret, though.
Yeah.
To the whatever little success we had. But you know what? You got me there. You talk about those early days of you being an official, and I think that's something that we need to start off with. You being the first and, you know, really the decorated Canadian being on the NCAA court. And I know this was something and a passion that you'd had. Football didn't really work out for you. You played when, you know, we're watered down and we wanted to be a Hamilton Tiger Cat. That didn't work out. You had the back injury, whatever. But you'll go to officiating, right? Now, okay, we all are in this area and think, okay, you know what? If I study and I work hard, I could be in what I guess was the OUA or the CIS or what it was called at the time. But sometimes you took that chance. You somehow landed an opportunity to do Olympics and then the NCAA.
Yeah.
That like at that time, it's like high pressure NCAA. How did that all work out?
It was really different. And no, I grew up. I didn't want to go to the OUA or the CIAU. I was going to be the quarterback of the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And I loved the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Grew up, my dad introduced me to Jim Trimble, who lived over in Aldershot. And so I grew up wanting to be the quarterback because right to this day, my favorite sport is Canadian football, CFL. My business is basketball, which I love. But no, what happened, and you know, this is sometimes you have to turn adversity into opportunity. I was playing quarterback at Waterdown High School prior to getting expelled from Waterdown High School. Nicole Martin, she became the valedictorian.
That's right.
Famous.
That's right.
At I got expelled. Now, 50 years to the day, the principal asked me to speak at Waterdown High School, and I did. 50 years to the day that I got expelled, and she introduced me as a famous graduate. Timeout, Michelle Visca, principal, famous attendee. Bubba, I want you to know that the principal, Michelle Visca, gave me 50 years after I got expelled my high school graduation diploma.
Wow.
Not an honorary. The deal. I graduated from high school. Anyway, played for football. We had a good football team and got hurt and turned to officiating. I didn't do hockey, didn't do football because I don't like cold weather. I did basketball, met Kitch McPherson, and everybody needs a mentor. You know, two things. You need to surround yourself with smart people, and you need a mentor or two. And I'm sure you've had an amazing broadcasting career, and I'm sure that you can attribute that to somebody that's been a mentor.
Somebody's.
Yeah. So I met Frank Buchanan, got me into officiating, met with Kitch, and Kitch was amazing. And all of a sudden, at 21 years of age, I'm doing the CIAU, now U Sport, final. And I did it with Lenny Parisi. I'll never forget it. And I was scared to death when Lenny turned, a mentor. Lenny turned to me as they're playing the national anthem, and he said, Ron, you do the running and I'll do the talking. And I loved, before a game, the national anthem. And when I went to the States, of course, they would make quite an honorable production. But anyway, lo and behold, going back, my first game was a CYO game, and Tom Gallagher paid me 75 cents and said, we want change because you're rotten. Once again, adversity. Adversity to opportunity. He was right. I was rotten. And I decided that I'm not the smartest guy on the planet or in the neighborhood, but I can be the hardest working guy. That's the secret. You don't have to be the smartest guy in the neighborhood. You have to be the hardest working guy. And I worked hard and got a call when I was 30 years old to go to the Olympics. Went to the Olympics, and it was the Olympics after the screw-up in 1972 when the Americans won the silver.
So Yugoslavia, Russia, was it? Russia.
Russia.
Or Soviet Union.
Yeah, and the United States to this day have never accepted their silver medal. Anyway, I got there, and the guy running the Olympics, his name was Lord Callanan, said, well, you're Canadians. You're a Canadian. Canadians can't play this very well, and we don't think you can referee very well, but you're going to get one game. And I said, that's one more game at the Olympics than anybody else is going to get. And I went out there and refereed like crazy. Got 2, got 3, got 11, got the gold medal game. Gold medal game, my whistle with the P got stuck.
There we go.
When Adrian Dantley took an elbow in the nose. But I guess I got through that game because the NCAA hired me. Well, they came and they said, would you like to referee in the NCAA? And I said, where do I apply? They say, you don't. You're hired. And I went to the NCAA, but Bubba, I've really never shared this with anybody. It was kind of tough in the beginning because all the people that I had refereed with had come up with the coaches through Division III, Division II, junior college. Well, I'm this Canadian that got parachuted in, and the coaches didn't know me from Division III, Division II, and many of them would say to my partner, who is this Canadian that has been parachuted in, and why isn't he refereeing the violent, slippery surface game? Hockey. So it was really tough. And I realized, too, that I had a lot to learn. But things worked out. I did a game in Houston. There was 18,000 people, and it was a tough game. But I still wasn't accepted. But we had a good game. And it was in the Summit, the famous arena. And my partner at the end of the game, he came in and he said, you know, I was really not happy about working with you because my buddies have been not getting an opportunity that you've taken away being a Canadian. He said, but you aren't Ron the Canadian, you're Ron the ref. Back then, there was no cell phones, no social media. The way to communicate was telephone and tele-ref. And I guess he shared it that I was a little more than Ron the Canadian. I was Ron the ref. Things started to get better. The assignments got better, and did a lot of conference championships, went on to the Sweet 16, and really had a wonderful time, my 25 years. I just absolutely, it was hard. You know, I had a real job. The only referee that crossed the border.
Yeah,
every
you're
game.
running the truck company too.
Well, Marie, my wife, was running the trucking company, and I was carrying dimes in my American dimes in my pocket, so I could call her.
Worth $1 here.
Yeah, and I would call her, and of course Steve and Dave were very, very young at the time, and so that was really, really hard. But looking back, that journey, it was absolutely amazing, and I learned a lot. You know, I got a doctorate in life, and how you can overcome adversity and turn it into opportunity, and how there's never such a thing as a bad call if you turn it around as a learning experience. So I had my share of bad calls. In particular, I missed my first ESPN game, national. I missed a goaltending in triple overtime. And to this day, I still have dreams about missing.
Did you miss it?
I missed it.
Yeah, okay.
I missed it.
Yeah.
And I called my supervisor, distraught, and he said, well, you know, as long as you turn that into a learning experience, we're going to be okay. And I'll never forget him saying that. But even to this day, it bothers me. The coach who the call went against, I met in the parking lot laying on my trunk and wouldn't let me in the rental car until I explained that call. As it turned out, my next game, that was a Saturday on ESPN, the next game was Monday night, the same coach.
Mm-hmm.
And what he did to get me in trouble, he secretly went to the game ball and let the air out of the game ball. And when I went out to toss the ball up, there was no air in the ball. And he reported me as not doing my pre-game duties. Anyway, a few years later, he was still coaching, and
you again.
I went to him, and before the game, you go and shake hands with the coach, and I'll never forget. He almost fainted when he saw me, but I went right over and Coach, what a pleasure to work your game. It took him by surprise.
There's so much we can go. I know we only have so much time, but there's so much in my mind here. First of all, quickly on this one. I don't think I've ever asked Dave this question. Yep. I've never asked Steve this question. So you will be the first person I ever ask, at least especially the first official referee. What is it like when you're in an arena? Pressure situation. Fans are on edge.
Yeah.
Especially when you're doing some big-time college games with the bigger schools and the bigger conferences. And they're all, ref, you suck. Ref, you suck. And it's 18, 17,000, 20,000 in unison. Do you hear that?
Absolutely not. I was immune to that. Mm-hmm. And, the one secret about officiating, and I shared this with my sons, I never wanted to force my kids into officiating. They made their own decision. And all three of my kids are in officiating. Steve has achieved. I'm so proud of my kids. Steve, Dave, doing his first Grey Cup, I was more nervous with him, watching him, than I was refereeing the Olympics in the same stadium. He did his first Grey Cup at the Montreal Olympic Stadium. The same with Ronnie. Now, Ronnie said to me, I never go out and tell the coaches my last name. That's his secret. I'm really, really proud of the achievements of my kids. Did I hear that? Never. Because Kitch taught me during the game, there must be 110% focus on your job, on your responsibility. You have a privilege of refereeing that game. And part of that privilege is you have to concentrate, and there can be nothing else in your life. And I've been abused, criticized. I got to tell you, the one... and John Calipari, has just left Kentucky.
Yes, big news.
He became a very good friend because I called his first ever technical foul on him at UMass when he had Canby. But I remember him coming to me. We were at St. Bonaventure. He was number one in the nation, UMass with Canby, going into St. Bonaventure, and St. Bonaventure weren't even ranked, and Calipari came up to me and he says, Ron, my daughter's favorite referee in the NCAA is you. He's working me. And I make the call that puts the game into overtime. Now, here's an unranked team. Place is jammed. Unranked team against the number one team in the nation. If you're the number one team in the nation, everybody's there. ESPN's there. The major networks are there. CNN are there. And I made the call that put the game into overtime, to which Calipari came down to me and he says, my daughter's not going to like you. And John's done well, and we met at the Final Four, and he was explaining to me the pressure of being the Kentucky coach. If they lose one game, it doesn't have to be in the tournament. People are looking for a tall bridge to jump off of.
That's right. Or
a tall building if the bridge doesn't work. There's a lot of pressure.
Sure there is.
In the
it's
NCAA, and there's a lot of television money. So, answer your question direct. Nope. I never heard. I worked in Kentucky with 22,000 fans, worked everywhere around the country. I worked in 6 conferences. Never heard the crowd.
All right, let me raise the stakes then.
Yeah.
You spent a lot of time on the basketball court with someone. Now, Mr. Calipari can blow his top. I've seen it.
Yep.
But there's someone else that's more famous for blowing their top. Maybe even throwing chairs on across the the hardwood. And you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
The dude in Indiana,
Yeah.
Bobby Knight, a guy that was probably more popular than the governor.
Yeah.
And you tossed him out.
I did.
You tossed him out.
Yeah. Bobby and I were pretty close. When he was the Olympic coach, he called me and he said, you know, Ron, these Americans, they don't understand FIBA rules. I want you to travel with my Olympic team. And we had a great tour. They would go across America with his Olympic team playing the NBA All-Stars.
Right.
And that's where I met people like Bill Walton, who was playing for the NBA All-Stars. They were terrific. And this Olympic team, and everywhere we went, we had this wonderful tour. There was one time, this is a great story, in Iowa. Bobby was not liked in Iowa. And the place is jammed, and the fans hated Iowa. And so I went over to Bobby to tell him something, and he started waving his arms and pretending he was screaming at me, which the fans, of course, went nuts because they didn't like Bobby. They liked me. And what he was saying is, let's go back to the airport together.
That's what he was saying.
Anyway, I worked that tour. It was a wonderful tour, and then he went on to the Olympics and so on. So a few years later, I'm working a Russian game in Bloomington, and the Russians and the Americans are like the Russians then and the Canadians in hockey. And they were pretty good. I had a contract to work all the international tours with that went across playing big-time schools because I had the right passport. I was a Canadian, so
Even Steven.
I'm neutral, but trained in the United States. So I did all those tours. And so we go into Bloomington. I took my wife. Bobby Knight was worshipped. And so he's getting whacked in this game. Isaiah had graduated. And so he's on me. And he's down about 15 points and came to me, and he says, you're going to have to throw me out of this game. And I said, under all circumstances, Coach, I'm not throwing you out because I know what the headline's going to be. Referees screw Indiana. So the ball went out of bounds. Back then, he was allowed 3 technical fouls. Ball went out of bounds. It was an obvious call. And he yelled, you suck. So I bust him. The same thing, the ball went out of bounds. Obvious call, you suck. And he came and he said.
Like straight to your face.
Yeah. And he said, you're going to throw me out. And I said, listen, you're getting whacked. And if I have to stay to the end, you're staying to the end. And he said, Canadians can't play this game, and Canadians can't referee it. And I tossed him.
That's it.
Well, in Bloomington, Indiana, I have just tossed God. And so we went into the locker room, and the police said, we've got a real problem. We got to get you back to Indianapolis. And the bigger problem, your wife is up there. And it was a very serious situation. It took Marie about 2 hours with the police to get down to our locker room to get our car and a police escort back. Yeah. That was quite an experience. And Marie kind of sided with Bobby Knight. Marie played on that famous, Hamilton's a hotbed for women's basketball.
Yep.
But Marie played on that famous Bishop Ryan team that won 159 straight games without a loss and 3 offs. And, of course, now you've got Transway, you got Cathedral, won 3 offs, you got St. Mary's. But Marie's team was, her sister Teresa went on to play for the Olympic team. So, but Marie doesn't like referees. Yeah, and so she kind of thought that I didn't treat Bobby fairly.
Well, you caused a lot of hassle for her, too, right?
Yeah, but we got the police escort. But, with my kids, I didn't want to force them into officiating. My son, Steve, I got to tell you how he got into officiating. I took him to a game in Florida. I had to toss one of the coaches. His name was Torchy Clark. And we had a police escort, Steve and I, out of the arena. We were in the police car, 2 motorcycles in front, 2 motorcycles behind, took us to the hotel, which was next door to Denny's. Steve, we got into Denny's and said, this refereeing business is fantastic. We get a police escort, 2 motorcycles there, 2 motorcycles there. I'm getting into officiating. This is a great business. Dave, he's refereeing basketball, really good. But everywhere he went, they would say, you only got this assignment because your name's Foxcroft. So he turned to football, did all those Grey Cups. Ronnie got in, and what he does, he says, Dad, I never tell anybody my last name. I just go out and I referee. And, of course, he's a great golfer, and he's a student sommelier. And my kids are great. I got 2 adult grandkids who are amazing. So, and I surround myself with the team smarter than me.
Well, it all comes full circle, and that's the amazing part of it is that, and I think that's one of the things I've always admired about you is that, one, you've never forgotten these lessons. You've never forgotten where you've come from.
Right.
You as I said, and I'll say this 1,000 times, you wave that Hamilton flag as high and as proud as anyone, and I think that's one of the things that people, it's probably why you met the Queen and all these things, the honor of Canada, people take notice to this stuff that you've done because you could have easily been successful with the book and the whistle and the trucking company and just stayed and enjoyed all the things that you've accomplished in your home, but you're out there, and that's why you're a Hall of Famer. And I think that's one of the amazing things that, people look at you and associate you with Hamilton. They associate you with basketball, which I know you're very, very proud about. And you're still doing stuff in basketball now. You want to let people know, because I think here's something, and I think I said this on the podcast with Steve.
Yeah.
Is I get this all the time. I'm watching the Raptor game, and I'm looking at the referee. The referee's doing some kind of replay stuff. He's checking some. I'm getting annoyed because the referee's taking too long looking at that replay. But then I noticed that, is that Steve Foxcroft? And is that Ron Foxcroft?
Yes.
Well, let people know what you do at the Raptor games in the NBA level.
I retired as a basketball referee and spent a year taking up skiing. And I went 3 times down the hill and turned to Marie and I said, Marie, we've just bought a ski chalet, we just bought a membership, and we just bought $14,000 worth of equipment. I hate skiing. So Stu Jackson called me.
Stu, okay.
From the NBA. And he said, we've got a new observers program. And are you interested? And I said, Stu, I haven't been home on a Saturday night in 25 years. Marie will kill me. I'll find you a person. So I went home and I said, Marie, she loves Stu Jackson. I said, Stu just called and offered me a job as an NBA observer, going to all these games and observing and critiquing and evaluating. And I turned him down because, I haven't been home on a Saturday night. And, she was taking me to birthday parties and wine and cheese parties and skiing. I hated it. And you know what she said? She said, you haven't refereed for 1 year. you're driving me stark raving mad. You've been a complete idiot since you stopped refereeing. You miss refereeing. You miss the locker room. Call Stu on his cell and accept that game. Bubba, that's 22 years ago. I've been working for the NBA, first as an observer. Now I do the courtside administration. We do the coaches' challenges, the replays. We're in communication with the replay center. And 3 years ago, it got to be quite arduous. The gridlock going to Toronto.
Right.
And I called the NBA and I said, listen, my son Steve is enormously qualified. I mean, he's done about 8 CIAU championships games. He's done FIBA. He's done NCAA. We were the first father-son to work.
You did your last game.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, exactly. We did our last game together. My son, Steve. And they've allowed us to share the job. So we job share. The job is, just love it so much. And thank goodness Marie said I was a pain in the butt and driving her stark raving mad. The year I took off and didn't officiate.
And again, I think that's great that you're so close to the game, and of course, it's your love, right? And
yes.
And I guess Marie had to find out the hard way, but I know you talk about being at the NCAA Final Four and just coming back and what you saw, and Zach Edey unfortunately didn't. Purdue just didn't have the numbers. UConn was a super team. Let's just be honest with that,
right?
But I'm going to say this. I watched that tournament, and I kind of had a feeling. I watched enough college basketball to have a feeling that UConn weren't going to get beat. But I had questions about the women's tournament.
Whoa.
And the women's tournament, I will say, and I know I'm not the only one, storylines all over the place.
Yep.
South Carolina 38. Could they go 38-0?
Right.
This Caitlin Clark, Paige Becker's a Canadian, right? Right. I mean, Aaliyah Edwards from Kingston, UConn, their head coach Gino. It just so many storylines, and the tournament delivered right down to the final game. Two parts of this question here. What happened to women's basketball that at least this tournament was better than the men's tournament? What happened? Why is it bigger? The ratings, we haven't got the ratings because we're still less than 24 hours from the final,
right?
The men's final. But I don't think it's going to beat the women's final.
No, the women's final. Well, first of all, the UConn Iowa game. 14 million viewers.
And 19 in the final.
Now, that outdrew NBA. That outdrew MLB. Now, I understand, except for the football national championship game, it outdrew college football.
Outdrew the final round of the Masters. Never has the Masters gotten that number.
Exactly. Now, a couple of things in particular. Caitlin Clark. North America relates to Caitlin Clark because she was shooting threes from the logo, from the center court logo, from everywhere. She was shooting threes from Burlington. I mean, it was, and you know what? Why people related to her? She has not done anything wrong. There's been nothing in social media. She's just been the all-American lady, and she's not a giant. And that's why also people can relate to her. The other thing, that South Carolina team, they taught us you have to go 9 deep. As a team, it's one thing to have 5 starters and Caitlin Clark. It's another thing to have 9 deep that can all play, all get minutes, and all score. Plus, the coach for South Carolina, I mean, she's on the same stratosphere as Caitlin Clark. Dawn Staley, an amazing human being. And that's important. An amazing coach. More amazing as a human being. And I think America related to that. The games were just, and Gino at UConn, Gino, I mean, he is amazing. He's won so many national championships. But, the call that went against him.
In the semifinal,
I like the way he handled it. He said, And remember, he coached Kia Nurse.
Yep.
I mean,
Breanne Stewart.
Who's bigger than Kia Nurse in Canada? Not too many people.
Well, not for basketball.
Not for basketball.
Right.
That's right. So, but you know what he said? Class. There's no substitute for class. Win with class, lose with class. Mm-hmm. And all he said was, our players need to make better screens. That illegal screen. Which reminded me, there's a foul on every play, Bubba. There's a foul on every play.
Just like there's a holding on every play.
Yeah, except Randy Ambrosi said, offensive linemen never hold. And Randy's my golf partner. But I got to tell you, a similar story we had with UConn in the Sweet 16 when I was officiating, UConn and Washington. Mm-hmm. Todd McCullough, Canadian, played for Washington. Richard Hamilton, famous guy. Mm-hmm. And Tim Ryan, Canadian, did the broadcast on CBS. We had 4 seconds to go. Washington's up 84-83. TV timeout. The crew huddled. I was with Don Rutledge, one of the best officiating officials on the planet. And we huddled during that TV timeout and said, the only time we're going to let the players decide this game, the only way we're going to blow a foul or blow a Fox 40 whistle is if there's an assault and the player that gets fouled, assaulted, has to be air ambulanced to St. Joe's Hospital in Hamilton, Ontario. Thank God we were prepared. You always have to raise your concentration level in the last 2 minutes of every game because the call you miss early won't make the headlines on CHCH Sports with Bubba O'Neil. The call you make in the last 2 minutes, if it's incorrect, is going to hit Bubba O'Neil on CHCH Channel 11.
I'm going to rip you.
Yeah. So we said, we know the ball's going to Richard Hamilton. And if he's assaulted, we'll call it. Well, Richard got the ball with 4 seconds to go, down one, and went in, shot, missed, got a layup. Todd McCullough marginally fouled him. It was a foul. We passed. That was the right thing to do. The ball went in. And UConn won. Went on to the Elite Eight, went on to the national championship, won the national championship. And that's how close they were to not winning the national championship. And, Bubba, the controversy, if I had called the foul on Todd McCullough, he's Canadian. Can you imagine? I would be sitting
linkage
today probably in Woodland Cemetery. So, the game, that screen, that illegal screen, by rule was a foul. And I got to support the referees. They made the call. I don't know if I'd make the call. I don't know.
Do you think the coaches understand that ultimately you don't want to influence the end of a game?
They do.
Yeah.
The coaches understand because, Gino, that had to hurt.
The guy dropped to his knees.
Yeah, that really, but I'll tell you, don't you admire the way he handled it?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, here you are, right after the game in the heat of the battle, you got the media with a microphone in your face. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't it be easy to rant?
Yep.
And say what you're really thinking? And he didn't. And I have so much admiration and respect for him, Don Staley, Caitlin Clark, the entire women's basketball has been elevated into another stratosphere. I'm so happy because really and truly in Canada, Hamilton is the hotbed. There's no question. It's not even debatable for women's basketball going back to Ancaster, Candy Clarkson, to Bishop Bryan, Marie Grant, Foxcroft, and then St. Mary's with Coach Waslowski, obviously with Cathedral and Transway.
Teresa Mack.
Teresa, the national championship, Teresa Burns and Dougie Harrison, who we lost. There's no question. I am thrilled. And yes, it outdrew everything. I believe the number was 18 or 19 million viewers. That's in another stratosphere. It really is.
But it wasn't like it was. Oh, I have to see this because it's a women's sports.
No,
it was intriguing.
It was.
It was intriguing and fun to watch, and like the back and forth. And can I say this too? Like the game to me, the women's game seems to be more exciting because I feel like with the guys' game, it's okay. Get down the court, look around, jack up a three.
Right.
Like you see it inside out, outside in, ball movement.
Yeah.
All of it.
You're right, and drama.
Which would bring the drama because the games are so close.
Yeah, exactly. The talent level is really in it. Now, remember, back in the day of Pat Summit at Tennessee, they had runs. Remember Old Dominion? Chris Critelli. Chris Critelli, and they're a sponsor on Critelli Furniture, are a sponsor on CH, but Chris Critelli won a national championship in Canada and went to Old Dominion and won a national championship. Only human being, and she's from Canada, to win a national championship in Canada and in the United States in the NCAA. I mean, we got to be very, very proud.
That's you've dovetailed to exactly where I need to be right now. Let me set this up. In my opinion, I could be wrong here, in the NBA, the favorites to win NBA MVP, Hamilton, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Greek Nigerian, Jokic, Dokic. Okay, there's just four guys just right there, or five guys, right? I look at Naismith Player of the Year men's player, Zach Edey. I think of the possible Rookie of the Year in the NBA.
Yes, France.
Victor Wembanyama.
From France.
I haven't said an American player.
No.
What happened?
The world has caught up. See, I did the 76 Olympic game, and it was all college players from the United States, and they competed around the world. And that's the lesson. You know, there's nothing wrong with growing your talent base and playing somebody better than you. What makes you better? Playing against somebody better than you as a learning experience. And that's what's happened. The entire world have caught up. Now add Jamal Murray in there.
Yes.
And R.J. Barrett. And just think of all these great Canadians and all these great players that, and you know, we got to thank the Americans, because back in 76 with Phil Ford and Adrian Dantley, they were college players, Bubba, and they were playing against adult men. And these college players were beating these adult men. And so the way to get better is to surround yourself with people that are better than you and learn and create that learning, create that opportunity. And that's what's happened in the world. The world basketball has caught up to the United States, and it's made the game extremely more exciting. The example is the kid from France going with the Spurs. This kid can do anything. He's 7'4".
He's going to be the best player in the NBA in a very short time.
Yeah. Now, the other thing, too, remember, I came up in the days of Bird and Magic. I refereed Magic at Michigan State, and he was Irvin Johnson then. And Larry Bird at Indiana State. Remember, the NBA wasn't the NBA that we know today. They were on tape delay. They didn't have the big contracts.
Forget that.
To be honest with you, I had a chance to go to the NBA, but I was making more money in the NCAA because they had a better TV contract. That all changed with Bird and Magic. And I remember sitting in the bus going from Cincinnati to Kentucky with Irvin Johnson at 18 years of age, and he was disappointed that he wasn't starting for the United States Olympic team. Well, that all changed.
It did.
It became Magic Johnson. But the game is amazing, the talent level. Now, the reason, too, remember, the college game is so exciting because you have the fans that are 20 years old, you have the bands, you have players.
Wild atmosphere.
You have players playing 30 games a year, not 110. You have players playing a 40-minute game. I'd like to see fewer TV timeouts in the NBA game and a 40-minute game. I love the FIBA game where you take the ball off the rim. And I would love to see a 40-minute game because to play 110 games from preseason to playoffs is tough physically and tough mentally. That's not going to change.
It won't come back, though, right? Like,
no.
We've already gone there. Like, I mean, I think about, like, I mean, hockey, that's a big discussion, too, that playing 82 games, in the NBA, the players are saying that's why load management is what is being used because, we're not playing 82 games. The health and all that kind of stuff.
Now,
and
give
you're right.
the NBA credit. That timeout they used to have under 10, they canceled that. Now it's under 7.
Well, that's good.
So, the TV timeouts are 2 minutes and 45 seconds, which is a long time.
Well, we see that with baseball, right? Baseball understood that we needed to change the pitch clock. These games are being clocked at like 2:30, and in our lifetime, we were watching games that were 3 hours and 10 minutes, and and then it's a Yankees and Red Sox, and those games were like almost 4 hours long. It's just too long.
The only thing I want to talk about is the price of the tickets now for the average fan, for the family.
Yeah.
I just went to the Phoenix Suns game. The tickets are priced properly so you can take your family. It was a really different audience. There were kids there, 6, 7, 8 years old, real fans in the lower bowl because the family could afford the tickets. I really think, and I talked to Glenn Grunwald about this at the Final Four, when are we going to reach the point that $1,000 night? Well, you couldn't go to an NBA game in Canada for $1,000 night with a family. So I think that we really need to look at, when the Blue Jays came to town, it was the greatest time when I could take my kids with a $2 ticket and buy a 50-cent Coke.
Yep.
So I am concerned, but going to the Phoenix game, the whole lower bowl was families because the tickets were priced so a family could attend. And we got to I don't know if we're ever going to get back to that.
Well, you think about the NBA, I mean, the Raptors in particular, what happened to the Sprite family zone? It's disappeared.
That's right.
Like it's gone, right? And you're right. And I know there's player salaries to be considered and all of that kind of stuff. That's just reality of all sports. But, yeah, you're right. I know we had Gareth Wheeler on the show here not all that long ago. And, he's a big soccer guy. And he said that was one of his biggest complaints about the NHL and the NBA is unlike soccer, soccer always provides supporter zones.
Right.
So the blue collar hardcore fan, the guys that bleed the team, there's a section for them. And they're generally the loudest and the most rowdiest.
Yes.
Hence we get the singing in sports and when you listen to these games in England. And we don't have that here. And it's been forgotten. And to the point where, there is a discussion where have the real fans been forgotten in sports, in major North American sports?
Let's put in a plug that the affordable sport right now in Canada is Canadian football. These kids play for the love of the game. They're not their salaries in the Canadian Football League are not in another stratosphere that's beyond what you and I can count. The Canadian football is still the sport in Canada where you can take a family and enjoy some popcorn and a hot dog and some Coke and not break the bank. So, I'm a big CFL guy and my son Dave is referee. By the way, Dave is named after Dave Keon because I was at the last Toronto Maple Leafs Stanley Cup victory. And Dave Keon was the most valuable player. Yeah. That was a long time ago, Bubba. And I named Dave after Dave Keon.
Yeah, I think you just hurt some Leaf fans with that one, right? You just hurt a couple of. I'm not one, but I mean,
that was a gut punch.
Yeah, that was a gut punch for some
That's right.
fans, because it's been a long time. That parade, they're still waiting there.
Exactly,
You know what I mean?
exactly right.
You know, we could go. I mean, first of all, will you come back? Will you come back?
It would be such a pleasure, Bubba. I have known you since you were in grade 9. You've accomplished so much. And I'll be honest, I was so excited to come in and share this time with you, who I love. And please have me back.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much, first of all. And I return everything that I said off the top there. I mean, and that's just not I wrote those words, but those are words I write because that's the feeling I get from you. That's the feeling I get from people in the community. You've made Hamilton's in a big renaissance right now, and you think you know that. And you talk about the Grey Cup and the Grey Cup parade and festival, and that a lot of people point to you for someone that's making this city a better place, and a place where people want to live and people want to work, and to wave that Hamilton proud, and and then like to say, hey, we love our city, and we appreciate all that you've done, and the fact that your name is forward in when you say Hamilton. A lot of people say the Foxcroft. So
well, Hamilton are the most aggressively friendly people, but also the most aggressively generous people. And we have things like City Kids and Liberty for Youth, and all the money from that book goes to City Kids and Liberty for Youth. So I hope people on this podcast go on to fox40shop.com and buy that book. It's a pretty good book.
Right.
Wrote it with Mike Ulmer.
Hey, Ulmer.
And knowing where the money goes. City Kids and Liberty for Youth. Hamilton is wonderful. But, when I refereed, I would say to people, I'm from Hamilton, Ontario. The first thing they would say to me is, that's where the Tiger Cats are.
That's right. Well, I'll tell you, that's where Ron Foxcroft is.
You bet.
Thank you so much. We look forward to you joining again. There's so many stories we could go on and on. But
thank you, Bubba.
It at least gives me one more episode on this network.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much. Hey, that's our Sportsline podcast for the day. And as you've just seen and heard, we love talking to people that love sports, that are passionate sports, and are passionate about their community. If you do know of an athlete, team, or event to promote, the Sportsline podcast do want to hear from you. Please hit that thumbs up, like, and subscribe button. And if you do have something to say, good or bad, please comment, because we do appreciate you listening and you letting us know how you feel. For the wonderful people that make the Sportsline podcast possible, thank you so very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.